I just got done watching the first Thor movie, so let's talk about it. So let's get into the characters. Obviously, the first character we have to talk about is Thor. I like Thor in this movie. I don't think he's nearly as good as he is in later films, but I do like Thor in this movie. He's very heroic. He's funny at times. He's obviously trying to save people not only on Earth, but on Asgard. To me, he just does what a hero should do in a comic book movie in this film, so I like him. So the next character up is Loki. Obviously, he's the brother of Thor. I think he's good in this movie. Again, I think he's very good in other films and everything, but I think he's good in this one. So obviously, he wants what Thor has, but he can't get it. So then he turns into a villain later on in the movie, and I think he does a good job at playing that role. And for this movie, I like what he does. So the next character up is Jane, obviously the love interest of Thor on Earth. So she's played by Natalie Portman, which as a Star Wars fan, I really appreciate that. I think she's good in this movie. Like I said with the other two, I think she's better in other films. But for this first movie, I think she's a good character. I really like, what she does as Thor's love interest. I really like what she's doing with all the research. I think it's really cool. And she's a good character. Here are some of my favorite moments from the movie.
Whatever I have done to wrong you, whatever I have done to lead you to do this, I am truly sorry.
So with that being said, let's get into the good things with this movie. The first thing would have to be, I really like Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, and Natalie Portman as their own characters. I think they do a great job, and like I keep saying, it only gets better from here. Another thing is, I really like the action sequences, especially the one in the very end of the film with Thor and Loki fighting on the bridge. I find it's shot very well. It's a really good action sequence. And the third thing would be, I really like Loki in this movie. His motivations for being a villain, make sense. And I'm not saying, he's right, but it is interesting to see this character who's, the brother of Thor go down this path. So I really like Loki in this movie. So the bad things with this movie, the first thing is this is still the early stages of the MCU. So you can just tell they're trying to figure out, how to get to the Avengers, especially after the Avengers came out. Then these movies started to get, really consistent. Another thing is, this movie's not that memorable. Like, when people talk about the MCU, not a lot of people talk about the original Thor, because I just think there's better Thor movies out there. There's better movies where, the character's just more fun to be around than this movie. Another thing is, this movie is kind of boring and slow in some places. And like I said, I just think there's better versions of this character in other movies. So I do think this is one of the most forgettable MCU movies. If this wasn't Thor's first appearance, it might be the most forgettable MCU movie. But at its best, I think it's fine. It's just a good superhero action movie at best.